So we're going to end preventable disease. All right, here are the problems. First of all, we don't have a healthcare system in this country. We have a disease management system that's functioning very imperfectly and is deconstructing before our eyes. We spend more per capita on our health than any people in the world by a long shot, and we have worse health outcomes than any other developed country. So something is very wrong with that picture. We're now spending something like 18% of our gross domestic product on health care. That will probably go up to 20% shortly. That's completely unsustainable. So we're in a mess. A basic problem is that prevention doesn't pay. Health promotion doesn't pay. Until we can figure out how to make those pay, we're not going to get anywhere. The fact is that as dysfunctional as the so-called healthcare system is, it's generating rivers of money that are flowing into very few pockets, the pockets of the big pharmaceutical companies, the manufacturers of medical devices, and the big insurers. They don't want anything to change. They have total control of our elected representatives. It doesn't matter whether you're Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. You cannot be elected to office in this country unless you've made deals with those interests. For that reason, there is no possibility that constructive change can come from the government. The only way that things are going to change is if there's a grassroots political movement in which people get angry enough about the situation and we begin to elect different kinds of representatives who do not have those commitments to those vested interests. I don't see that happening yet, but that's what has to happen. Now, why are these diseases that we're so concerned about preventable? Because they're rooted in lifestyle choices. So the challenge is, how can we encourage people to make better lifestyle choices and discourage them from making worse lifestyle choices? You know, what are the possibilities that are available? So I'm first going to talk to you from my perspective as a clinician, what I can do as a practitioner to help people make better and not make worse lifestyle choices. The first thing I can do is to educate them. I'm an educator. I have great faith in the power of education. The literal meaning of the word education is to draw out. It's to draw out that which is inside already. I firmly believe, and I've seen this over and over, if you present information to people in ways that they can understand and connect with their own experience, they will move in that direction. I've seen that over and over again. But we do a terrible job of health education in this culture. If you think about the health education you were exposed to in schools, it's a joke. It was somebody, usually an unhealthy person, standing in front of a class telling you what you should do. But it is I absolutely believe that if you can explain to people, I'll repeat this again, if you can give people information that they can understand and connect with their own experience, they will move in the right direction. So that is our first option, and it's a very powerful one. Second thing you can do is to model health for people. And this is something that I teach to all the physicians, medical students, residents, allied health professionals that come through the University of Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine. You have to embody health. You have to model health for patients. It is very powerful if a practitioner, somebody who has medical knowledge, simply by example can inspire people to make constructive changes. And if there's a disconnect between what a medically trained person is telling you and their own being, it's not going to compute. It is very difficult to make these kinds of recommendations to people if you work in a setting that's inconsistent with what you're saying. If you're telling people about what a healthy diet is and then the institution has a fast food restaurant on its premises, that's a major disconnect. We have to work to make that consistent. The third possibility, and this is one that people often never think of, and it's advice that I commonly give to patients. If you want to have better habits, better lifestyle habits, spend more time in the company of people who have the habits you want to develop. It's that simple. You want to be more physically active, spend more time in the company of people who are physically active. You want to eat better, spend more time in the company of people who have better eating habits. Totally simple thing, and most people never never think about that. In the area of emotional wellness, there's a great body of research showing that moods are contagious. In fact, they can be tracked through populations in the same way that we can track the spread of infectious diseases. Exactly the same mathematical models. If you have a happy friend who lives within a half mile of you, your chances of being happier are increased by a particular percentage. And the effect falls off with distance. You know, beyond a certain distance, it's a negligible effect. So this is a very simple, practical strategy for helping people make better lifestyle choices. So these are things we can do on an individual level. Education, modeling healthy behavior, suggesting to people such an obvious thing to spend more time in the company of people that have the habits they want to develop. Now, what are our options as a society? First of all, there has to be congruence in the messages that society is giving to people. You can't have the government telling us to eat more fruits and vegetables, and at the same time have the government subsidizing commodity crops and not subsidize fruits and vegetables. You know, the reason that high fructose corn syrup is in everything and refined soybean oil is that these are made artificially cheap through government subsidies. There are no government subsidies for fruits and vegetables, which are out of the reach of most poor people in our society. Have you ever been on an Indian reservation and gone into a grocery store? It's shocking what's available there. It's the worst of the worst. If there are any fruits and vegetables, they are wilted and completely devoid of chi. We cannot be giving one message from one part of society and another message from another part. There has to be congruence there. What are the options that we have as a society to encourage people to make better lifestyle choices and discourage them from making unhealthy ones? And by the way, I think we should be actively experimenting with everything, both with positive incentives and negative incentives. By negative incentives, for example, the state of Mississippi a few years ago instituted a fat tax on state employees. If state employees who were overweight did not lose a specified amount of weight in a specified period, they lost their health benefits. So that's an example of a negative incentive. We have to try these things to see if they work. There has been a wide discussion of a tax on sugary beverages. I think we should experiment with that and see what happens. It's worked in Mexico. There is a dramatic effect on putting a significant tax on sodas in Mexico. Sodas are one of the main drivers of obesity in the Mexican population, and this has been stopped by that disincentive. Same thing has been observed with cigarettes. There are very few strategies that have worked to discourage people from smoking. One of the ones that's been effective is a tax, a significant tax, which puts the price, makes it difficult for young people to buy cigarettes. You know, that's an example of a negative incentive. Smoking is a very interesting one to look at. You know, we've come a long way with smoking, and we still have a long way to go. Tobacco in the form of cigarettes is the most addictive drug known, or at least it's right up there with crack cocaine. This is a very powerful stimulant. You are putting it into your body. Inhaling smoke is just one step removed from putting a needle in your vein and injecting it. It's as if you're giving pulses of this very powerful stimulant to deep brain centers. One horrifying statistic that I read is that a youngster who smokes more than one cigarette has only a 10% chance of remaining a non-smoker. Imagine that. I mean, this drug is so addictive that you shouldn't even try it once. When I was in medical school, I was taught that cigarette smoking was not an addiction. I was taught that it was a psychological habit. Something right in front of our faces, people shooting up every 20 minutes because the brain is demanding nicotine in that form, and we did not see it for what it is. You know, this was shortly after, when I was growing up, doctors sold cigarettes in advertisements. You know, in Life magazine, doctors with mirrors on their head holding out packages of Lucky Strike and saying, "I recommend these to all my patients because they're soothing to the throat." When I see stuff like that, my mind immediately goes to, what are we doing today that 50 years from now we'll look back on with the same sort of disbelief? So one of the things that drove cigarette addiction was fashion. If you grew up in the 1930s and 1940s, every movie star smoked all the time on the screen. How could you not have wanted to try it? And if you tried it, you had a 90% chance of becoming addicted to it. Fashion is a very powerful driver of behavior. I think one of the things we should do about cigarettes today is absolutely ban it from movies and television. Nobody on the screen should be seen smoking. There is still a fashionable message out there. And the particular thing that has caught up young people is that not only is it fashionable, not only do very successful people do it, but it has a slight air of deviance to it. And that combination of deviance and fashionable is very seductive. That's something we should try to change. I would love to see us make wellness fashionable. Fashion is a very powerful driver of behavior, and I don't think we have used that option as a society. And that's something we could do in this movement here, in the Moonshot. If we could actively enlist leaders, celebrities from the entertainment industry, from sports industry, in a concerted effort to make wellness fashionable, that could be a very powerful driver of behavior. I don't think we have exploited that. Another interesting one that we haven't exploited is to make better lifestyle choices, healthier choices, fun, because people will do what's fun. I don't know how many of you have seen, this is several years ago now, but one of the most delightful things that I came across on the internet was a website called thefuntheory.org. There was a series of ad campaigns from VW Sweden. One of them is, the first one that I saw was a subway, some of you may have seen this, a subway station in Stockholm in the morning. And there is, at rush hour, there's a staircase and there's an escalator. Everybody comes off the subway and takes the escalator. Nobody uses the stairs. Then you see a team of engineers come in and they rip out the staircase, and there's all this wiring and stuff going on. And when it's done, the staircase has been converted into what looks like a piano keyboard with black and white keys. So it's again morning rush hour. People get off the train and look at this thing curiously. Most people are taking the escalator, but one person ventures over and puts a foot, on the stairs, and there's a loud tone, and it actually plays scales. So soon people are exploring this, and pretty soon people are running up and down the stairs, and everybody's taking the stairs and nobody's using the escalator. And brilliant. They had another one where they went into a park in Stockholm and rig up a trash can, and it has a big sign over it saying the world's deepest trash can. That's all. So people are in the park looking at this thing curiously. Somebody picks up something from the ground, throws it in, and there's a wonderful sound effect of and so pretty soon everyone is scouring the park to find litter to throw into the trash can because it's fun. That is an option we have not actively explored in trying to shape people's behavior, to make healthy lifestyle choices more fun. And young people are incredibly responsive to that. So I would say, the challenge we face as a society, first of all, we have powerful vested interests that do not want things to change, that are going to pay us for interventions, for giving people medication, for all of the active medical stuff, and are not going to pay for keeping people well. There is a vested interest in the sick kind of orientation of our healthcare system at the moment. Secondly, we have mixed messages coming at us from society, such as telling us to eat more fruits and vegetables while not subsidizing fruits and vegetables. Then we have, all of these, these vested interests that are making money from promoting unhealthy habits. But as I said yesterday in the roundtable, if you go, for example, to the food companies and ask them why they can't give us healthier food, their response is, we're just giving people what they want. And their market forces are very powerful controls over industry. If the market moves in the direction of healthier stuff, that's where the companies go. If people want it, that's what they'll give them. So this goes back to educating people to understand why healthier choices are better for them, to modeling healthy behavior as best we can, and to working together to use options that we have not tried as a society, to make, and I think big ones that I would urge us to do, especially in this group. First of all, yes, finding ways to make healthier choices fun. I mean, that's like completely unexplored territory. But then I would really challenge this group to think about how we can get an initiative going in which we can recruit thought leaders and celebrities to work at making healthy choices fashionable, to make wellness fashionable. Fashion, again, I'll just repeat, is a very powerful driver of behavior in our society, and we want to make use of that. Now, I know most people have problems with the music shooing them off the stage. I often talk short, and that's really all I have to say to you this morning. So I'm going to stop there. Goodbye. Okay.